Hello everyone and welcome to Static WordPress with Elementor and Simply Static. Today I want to show you the entire process from from a WordPress website to a static one. So we will cover a bunch of steps. The first one is preparing your WordPress website before going static. It's not too much to do, but there are certain things you want to make sure they are in place before converting to a static site setup. Then we will go into Bunny CDN and configuring the deployment. Bunny CDN will be basically our hosting provider for our static website. Then we will use FormSpree for our form integration. So we use a standard Elementor form and we send it over to FormSpree, which automatically collects the submissions and sends the submissions to you via email. The last step we want to cover today is connecting a custom domain with your Bunny CDN storage, so you really have like a real-life example of a static WordPress setup. Okay, let's start with the basics, preparing our site before going static. To do that, go back to your dashboard, head over to Simply Static Settings, and we want to cover a couple of settings in general. The first thing you want to make sure is enabled is forced URL replacements. This makes sure all the URLs from your WordPress website will be converted to the static URL later. In our case, we're using relative path because we don't have a static URL right now, and converting to a relative path makes sure we don't have to struggle with a custom domain just yet. The other important thing is enabling generate a 404 page. That's basically your error page for everything that doesn't return a result. So if someone searches for something and there isn't a result on your website, this particular 404 page will get loaded automatically and make sure the user understands what's happening here. There's one last thing I want to mention, and this is a custom thank you page. So all I've done is under pages, you can find a thank you page. It's a pretty plain page created with Elementor, just confirming that the form submission was sent. We will be using that one later down the road to handle the form submissions on your website. So copy that particular URL, head back to your dashboard, Simply Static Settings, General, Include additional URLs, and we add that one here to make sure it gets exported on our static conversion. So all we have to do now is save the settings, and we're done with our preparation. So as the next step, we will handling Bunny CDN. You will find the integration in Simply Static Settings Deploy, and if you click on the select menu, you will find Bunny CDN as an integration. So before we are starting filling out the details here, we're going to Bunny CDN. Bunny CDN is a CDN provider that makes it really easy to deploy, host, and connect a custom domain to your static website. So create an account right here. I have one. It's because why I'm logging in right away here. And we start with a storage zone. So Bunny CDN splits the static site setup in two parts. One is the storage zone. That's basically where all the physical files are stored, and a CDN or a pull zone, which is basically how your files getting cached and served to the actual browser. So the CDN part is what your visitors will see in the end, and storage is where your files are located. So let's create a new storage zone. Let's call it Page Builder Summit. Okay, this name is already taken. Page Builder Summit -test. Let's see. Okay, Page Builder Summit -test. So we use a standard tier here because we are not expecting enterprise grade traffic right now. We keep the main storage location to Europe. We keep geo-replication enabled. You can also disable it, but the entire purpose of a CDN is a distribution worldwide, so it does make sense to have geo-replication. And we add our storage zone. So this takes a couple of seconds. Okay, here we are. Our storage zone is set up now. So let's move to CDN. And we're basically replicating what we've done with the storage zone. So we create a new pull zone, give it a name, Page Builder Summit-test in our case. We don't want to use an original. We want to use our created storage zone. So select storage zone and select Page Builder Summit.test. We are using the standard tier here, and this is just an overview about the pricing zones. So click on the Add Pull Zone button, and it will take a couple of seconds again. Okay, great. We have a storage zone, we have a pull zone. So now we can head back to Simply Static and figure out which settings we have to add here. So the first one is the Bunny CDN API key. That one is a general one, so it's the same for all projects you created in Bunny CDN, and you will find it in your account settings. So if you go to Billing and you go to Account Settings, and you can scroll down a bit, you will find the section with API, and you can click this little copy to clipboard button right here to get the API key. So we're going back to Simply Static and pasting in our API key right here. The storage zone depends a bit on your location. So storage.bunnycdn.com is the default one if you're using the same endpoint I've used in this setup. If you want to go with another one, click on the little link right here, and you get a list of all the available endpoints and the storage zone URL you have to use to configure. Okay, Bunny CDN access key. That's a pretty tricky word for a pretty simple thing. So I'm going to show you real quick where do you get it. Going back to our storage zone. So click on storage and it will load all your storage zones right away. And we click on Page Builder Summit-test, FTP and API access, and you will get presented with two options. We don't need a read only because we want to push files. So this particular password right here is your access key. Copy to clipboard, getting back to the settings and pasting in Bunny CDN access key. Okay, we are only left with two additional options, the pull zone and the storage zone. That's basically just the name we've added right here. So I'm gonna copy that one as well. And as we use the exact same name for the storage as pull zone, we also add the same name right here. The subdirectory is optional, so you don't have to use it. And we are not going to use it in our particular example right now. So I'm going to click Save Settings. Settings saved successfully. And we are all done with the Bunny CDN integration for now. Okay, before we run our export, let's work on the forms integration. To get started, go to Simply Static Settings Forms and enable Use Forms. You don't have to configure anything else right here, just enable it, save the settings. And what you will notice is, no, we don't want to save our password, thanks. There's a new menu item right here called Forms. If you click on it, it's basically a custom post type where you can create form connections for all your existing forms. We only have one right now, so we are only gonna set up one. We call it Contact, and as we are using Elementor, we select Elementor Forms, and all we have to do now is figuring out the form ID and setting an endpoint. So for the form ID, you have to visit the page. I'm gonna open that real quick in a new tab, and you have to go to the contact form, add one right here, and Elementor doesn't make it super obvious to find the form ID. So I hope you're familiar with inspecting Element in your browser, and it will open the developer tools, and that is our form element. And as you can see, there is a hidden field right here called form ID, and it has a value. Maybe make that a bit more. So, and it has a value right here, and that's the one we are looking for. So copy that one, and we can close the developer tools again, getting back to our form integration, and paste in the form ID right here. Okay, the other options are optional for our particular use case because we're using form spree. So form spree is basically a handler between your static website and your email inbox, or whatever you want to send the form submissions to. It has integrations with MailChimp, with Trello, Slack, and so on. But we are just taking a look at emails right now. So create an account right here. The free account is completely fine for the purpose of the conversion process we're handling today. So I already created one. So I click sign in, and I'm right in my dashboard. Click on the little plus icon right here to create a new form. We call it contact, and I want to forward the submissions to hello@simplystatic.com, and we click create form. Okay, you will see a couple of code examples and a couple of instructions. You can absolutely ignore it. Here's our endpoint, copy it, and that's pretty much it for now. So go back to the form connection, and in the endpoint field, add the endpoint. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. There's a redirect URL setting right here. If you remember, we created a thank you page. So what that setting is gonna do is once a submission is forwarded to form spree, it will redirect to that particular URL. This URL is not your WordPress website, it's your static URL. So where do you get your static URL? Well, at least before you have connected a custom domain, the static URL is in CDN. Click on your pull zone, and Bunny CDN is providing you a temporary domain right here that we're gonna use as the static URL for now. So get back to the form connection, add the URL right here. We have to add the protocol, HTTPS, and thank-you. Okay, that's it for now. We configured Elementor forms, we added a form ID, we added the endpoint, and we have a redirect URL in place. So we're gonna publish that one right now, and that's all you have to do to make the form connection for now. Okay, so we prepared our WordPress website, we configured Bunny CDN, and we have set up our forms. So the next step, obviously, is generating the static files. So go to Simply Static, Generate, or Settings, and then Generate, and you click the Generate Static Files button, and it will start fetching all the pages that we need and will automatically transfer to Bunny CDN. So in our case, it's about 700 pages and files. We do have a custom integration for Elementor and Elementor Pro to make sure all the required assets are added automatically. We generated the 404 page, 800 pages in total. So this does take a couple of seconds, but don't worry, it's not like a 2-hour process. We're talking more about like 5 minutes or so. So we're gonna wait now until the upload is finished. I might speed that process a little bit up so you don't have to wait the entire time here. Okay, so the entire process took about 4 minutes now, and all the files should now be available at our storage zone. We can quickly check that if you go back to your Barney CDN dashboard and you go to storage, and it will load our storage zones, and you click on it and you will see, okay, there are a bunch of files now. There are folders for all our pages. We have the home page called index.html. We have WP content with a bunch of folders. So that looks about correct. Let's check the result. So go to CDN, page builder summit dash test. We're gonna force SSL right here. It's not required but recommended. And let's open a new tab right here at the URL. And well, that one looks quite great. So as you can see, we're now on our static website, and it's no longer WordPress. And everything looks great so far. Oh, we're gonna catch an issue here. So if you take a look closely at the testimonial section, it seems there are some images missing, so we're gonna fix that right away. But besides that, everything looks kinda great. Okay, so before we continue mapping a custom domain, let's just fix the issue with the missing images. So we're gonna using the browser developer settings again and take a look. Okay, here's the necessary. Might make it a bit smaller so you can better see what's going on right here. Inspect element. Okay, WP content uploads 2024. Okay. So it's using background style CSS, which isn't automatically referenced when you're using relative path. But that isn't really a problem at all. So remember, WP content uploads 2024, and we go to the settings. Simply static settings. Gonna readjust my window right here. Simply static settings, general, include, and what we're gonna include is not a URL but a directory. So if you click on copy home path right here, you can paste it right away and you land on the root directory of your WordPress installation. If we remember correctly, it's WP content uploads 2024. Okay, so save the settings, check. Okay, this will make sure it transfers necessary images on our next export. Okay, now let's do a quick test of the forms connection we configured. So we're going to our static website, page builder summit-test.b-cdn.net, and I'm on the contact us page now. If you remember, we connected it to FormSpree, so as soon as we submit the form, we should see the submission on FormSpree. That's what we're going to do next and test. Adding a random phone number right here. I want bread. It's not super creative, but it will work for our test scenario. So I click the submit button. And behind the scenes, we are offloading the submission now to FormSpree. And as you can see, we get redirected to our custom thank you page. So let's go back to FormSpree and check for submissions. I'm gonna reload that page now. And there it is. So as you can see, here is my form submission now, containing all the fields from our Elementor form. I've also got the exact same information via email right now, but it's just easier to show you the submissions right here. So, okay, our form connection is working. What I've done in the background now is I've ran a new export, including the uploads folder we've added earlier, and can't check the results right now. So I go back to home, scroll down the page, and here we are now. Gonna closing that one right now. Okay. As you can see, the testimonial images are right there. The slider is working perfectly fine now. And we have a fully functional static website, including a working form submission. So the last thing I want to show you is connecting a custom domain. While for testing, the temporary domain of BunnyCDN is nice, you obviously want to use your static website on your own domain. For that particular purpose, I registered a new domain called mystatic.site, which we'll be using right now to connect a custom domain. So go back to your BunnyCDN dashboard and head over to CDN and select our created pull zone. So the first thing you will see here is add custom hostname, and that's exactly what we want to do right now. So in my case, the domain is mystatic.site. Gonna copy that and add the hostname. Okay, while we're waiting, you can copy the name of your BunnyCDN project right here. And I'm using Cloudflare, so that particular UI might look a bit different for you depending where you manage your domains, but the processes taken are basically the same. So I'm in my DNS settings for mystatic.site now, and I add a new record. And we are not going to be using an A record. Instead, we are looking for a CNAME record. In Cloudflare, to connect a record for the root domain, you add the @ sign, and the value is the temporary domain BunnyCDN provided to you. We're not going to proxy that one. And yeah, that's pretty much everything we have to do. Click Save Settings. And you have a new CNAME record pointing to the BunnyCDN project. What we're also gonna add is the www variation for the domain. So add a CNAME, www, use the same target we used before, removing the space, disabling the proxy status, and hit the save button again. So now we have two records, one for the root domain and one for the www variation of our domain, both pointing to the BunnyCDN domain of your pull zone. So going back to manage pull zone, you will see there's a prompt now, add custom domain, CNAME. That's the domain we added, and here's the value. I copied it so we can speed up the process a little bit, but you will also present it with the same pop-up window, so you can copy and paste the CNAME value right here. Depending how fast your DNS provider is, you can verify and activate SSL right away, or you have to skip the verification and enable it later. So we're gonna try verify and activate SSL right now. Let's see how fast Cloudflare DNS is providing the details here. An error code. Okay, obviously the DNS isn't pointing to the bunny CDN CNAME right now, so we skip verification for now. And we're at the www variation of our domain, mystatic.site. Add hostname. Skip the verification. Okay, now we have added both of our domains right here. So I expect the DNS change to happen in a couple of seconds. So before we're gonna enable SSL right here, we go to our project right here and we switch to edge rules. With edge rules, you can do quite a lot of things: custom redirects, forwarding to other ports or to an external servers, and so on. We keep it simple for now. All we want to achieve is redirecting the www version of our domain to the root domain. It's a good case for SEO optimization to avoid duplicate content. So click on Add New Rule, and I'm gonna call it www to non-www redirect. Okay, you have to choose an action. In our case, we just want to forward all requests coming from www to the non-www version of our domain. So if you open up the select menu and you scroll down a bit, you will find redirect to URL. Select that one. Add our non-www domain name, https://mystatic.site. I'm gonna copy that one. We choose match any. You can also use match all. Just don't use match none because we're defining the pattern in case we want to redirect to that particular domain. So we're gonna use match any. I'm gonna add my domain right here and add www.mystatic.site to make sure we have our www variation of the domain. There's one thing to note here. You can't use domains like that within an edge rule because it is aimed to do file-based redirection. So we have to add a slash right here and a wildcard. So, which means like if someone visits www.mystatic.site/contact, it will redirect to mystatic.site/contact and not just to the root domain that we have configured. So that's all for now. Click on Save Edge Rule, and the edge rule is created. So let's go back to General and try to activate SSL again. Get free SSL certificate. We added the CNAME. Let's see. Could not load SSL certificate. So let's check we've done everything correctly. Enable mystatic.site. Our CNAME is pagebuildersummit-test. pagebuildersummit-test.bcdn.net. We have our CNAME setup. We have the TTL to auto. So that should be correct. Maybe our bunny CDN is taking a bit longer. Just making sure I haven't added any typos right here. So I'm gonna copy that without a space. Going back to Cloudflare. Clicking on Edit. Okay, no, that looks perfectly fine. Okay, so trying again. Okay, while we're waiting for the DNS provider to update our domain, we can go back to our Simply Static settings and change a couple of things. So as we're now moving to our custom domain, it might be good to switch from Simply Static settings general, replacing URLs, to absolute URLs, HTTPS, and add my static site right here. As we are now having a static URL, it makes sense to use the exact same URL right here. We don't have to change anything else right here, so we're gonna save the settings now. One thing we should also change is in our forms integration. We've added the redirect URL, and this one is still pointing to our Bunny CDN domain. It's optional to replace it, as Bunny CDN will handle the redirect for you, but just for the purpose of good practices, we add my static.site and add the HTTPS in front of it and update our form configuration. So what you want to do now is running a new static export. I'm not going to do that right now because we already done like 3 exports during our setup process, but that's what I would recommend, so you have like everything updated to your new domain. So let's move quickly back to Bunny CDN, enable the SSL certificate. Shouldn't take that long usually. I'm not sure if it's like just because I'm recording a video tutorial right now, but there aren't any more steps involved right now. Oh, look at that. Enabled. So we're gonna force SSL and we try enabling it for my static site. Let's see if that works as well. There isn't much more to do here. You basically have to wait for the DNS to be recognized, and once that's done, you're following the exact same process I'm doing right now. Bunny CDN will tell you once the DNS is updated, and you can just enable it, force SSL, and everything is available under a secure connection for your visitors. Okay, all done now. We're forcing the URL right here, and we have set up everything we wanted to do. So the last check we want to do right now is that the redirect from the www version is working. So we're typing https www.mystatic.site and click enter. And look at that, the www is gone, we got redirected, and we have now a running SSL certificate and a custom domain running on Bunny CDN. So that's basically everything I wanted to show you as part of this tutorial. I hope that helps a lot in going static with Simply Static and Elementor. I highly recommend FormSpree. You only need the free plan because everything that is happening in the pro version is already handled by Simply Static, like the redirect to a thank you page, for example. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thanks for taking the time to participating in Page Builder Summit and taking a look at my session. And I hope you learned something. Bye bye.